Finding high-quality mental health care can be daunting and exhausting. That's why Cerebral offers convenient access to online mental health services, including therapy and medication management. Cerebral's diverse clinician team can help with anxiety, depression, insomnia, stress, grief, big life changes, and more. You can schedule and communicate with your care team through Cerebral's mobile app and attend your sessions from the comfort of your own home. Get started with or without insurance. Plus, you can now use FSA or HSA. Start your first month for 50% off at Cerebral.com/ACAST.
ACAST powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, I'm Kim Holderness.
And I'm Ben Holderness.
We host the Holderness Family Podcast every Tuesday.
You may know us from the silly videos that we make online.
Or a book about marriage called Everybody Fights.
Or as winners of season 33 of The Amazing Race.
Still can't believe that happened. Yeah. Listen, we do a lot of stuff, but our podcast is our most favorite thing.
Yeah, because every week we get to sit down face to face, talk to each other about marriage, family, mental health, or just anything that we want to know more about.
Sometimes we have expert interviews, sometimes it's just us, but our goal is to bring some joy and laughter into your life every week.
Our other goal is that maybe you will learn something as well.
Right. So search the Holderness Family Podcast and check out our most recent episodes. We have one about staying organized with creators of the Home Edit.
And one about being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult.
We hope you'll join us.
ACAST helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi, Dave here, and you're listening to The Cinemile. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies. We being me and my wife. But she's not here today. Got my friend Alex here.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. Alex, as our regular listeners will know, is our horror guy. You're our guy for the horror.
I'm very honoured to have that reputation.
You're just a horrible guy. And we're going to see Dr. Sleep, the Stephen King sequel to The Shining. It's a sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's like... I'm very interested because obviously The Shining is... I've known it... Oh, this way, I think.
Where are we? We're in a car park.
Yeah.
We've come... we're in a basement.
Obviously, I know The Shining because of the Kubrick movie. That is one of the most iconic horror movies of all time. But this is a sequel to the book, and obviously Stephen King wasn't so happy with the movie in many ways.
No. Well, and wasn't he involved with a TV movie, which he was much more happy with?
Yeah, he tried to remake a terrible version of it. But yes, so I'm excited to see what comes of this. But
the thing is, isn't this also a bit of a sequel to the movie? Because from what I've seen, it's got some of the iconic imagery, right? And it's
Mike Flanagan's directing it, right? He did that amazing series on Netflix,
Haunting Hill House, right?
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic.
That was so good.
And so I think he's gone like, how can I please? Because I've seen all the interviews and Stephen King's sitting right next to him, so he's got to go like, we love the book, we love the movie. How do we do it? So I think it's a sequel to both, right?
It's a bit of a challenge then.
How
do you make a sequel to both those things, keep everyone satisfied? And it has to be an adaptation of the book, which is the sequel, like this Dr. Sleep book.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
No, I haven't read the book.
Me neither.
And obviously when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh my God, this is so different.
Yeah, it's a weird movie.
Pull.
It looks like a weird... Yeah, it says pull.
I just want to Darwin
Award. It's great for a
there.
podcast as well. Yeah, so, high hopes then? I'm quite optimistic.
I didn't have high hopes. Then I saw the trailer and I enjoyed the trailer. Then I saw obviously when you saw Ready Player One and they did the amazing Shining reference in that, I thought, you're not going to get that much better. That was such a great bit of fan service.
You're like, I'm
this
primed
is supposedly absolutely on par with it, so I'm very excited.
All right, well, we're here now, so let's stop talking. We'll see you on the other side of Dr. Sleep. I'm also excited, incidentally. All right, bye.
Hi. You can hear me. You're magic. Like me.
I don't know about magic. I always called it The Shining. The world is a hungry place. A dangerous place.
These people, they hurt people like us.
These are the devils. They'll eat what shines. And they've noticed that little girl.
Wow, hi there.
Get out of my head! Get out!
I haven't felt power like that in so long.
They're coming. Where are we going?
There's a place. You sure you want to do this?
I'm ready.
Yes, you run, dear. And then I will find you. And you will scream for years.
Right. Okay. We're getting in the car. That was us getting in the car. We just saw Dr. Seatbelts.
Yeah.
Seatbelts.
Taking that off. I'm turning that off because I remember that happened last time.
Yes. Yeah, no, turn the
I
radio
couldn't find
off.
the ticket last time.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh God,
no, this time we're on it. Right. Before we talk about it, let's give a quick sort of synopsis. Yeah, let's give a quick teaser for kind of what this movie is. And it is all the things we discussed, but basically the plot is older Danny Torrance from The Shining, who is kind of taking on a gang of people who are draining the life or draining the shining out
kind of
people,
like
right?
soul vampires or something, right?
Yeah, soul vampires, let's say.
But it's very interesting. You start off Danny Torrance, and he's a raging alcoholic. There's so much story before the story, right? In this, they sort of like go, do you remember this character who went through hell and back in the Overlook Hotel? Well, he is absolutely damaged goods. He is the most damaged, drunk. Oh God, that beginning scene with the girl. There's so many things I want to talk about, but it was a very, very harrowing sort of portrayal of a character.
And we'll get. I think there's a lot to unpack in Spoiler Street. If you haven't listened to this podcast before, we're driving, so we'll have to find Spoiler Street and turn into it somewhere. But let's talk about our sort of general thoughts. I really loved it. I was just gripped. It was a long movie.
Yeah, very long, 2.5 hours.
But it sort of, bar a few bits towards the end, it had me the whole time. I absolutely was invested in Danny and all the new characters presented. In fact, for 90% of this movie, I forgot that it had anything to do with The Shining.
I think that was the big thing for me. I felt at the beginning, when they started throwing Shining at me, it didn't sit right. It was not sitting right. But the story is good story.
Yeah.
It's got a bit more in common with like Near Dark or like even Lost Boys a little bit.
I was going to say Lost Boys.
Hints of vampire.
There's so much Lost
stuff.
Boys in here.
Yeah,
like and we'll go into detail later, but early on, the stuff that happens with that group.
Yeah, the look and feel of it and all that sort of stuff. And it is a genuinely it's a really good story. And I think if I had not known this thing was completely tied to The Shining, it's a really good horror story.
It almost doesn't need it.
Yeah, that's how I felt a little bit. Yeah,
and it almost, I dare say, might have been better without The Shining stuff. But that's not. I'm also not saying that The Shining stuff got in the way of the story, because it didn't. It just was kind of like a little cherry.
Yeah,
almost. But it didn't need it, and this could stand on its own, and it stands very well on its own. That director, writer, and editor, as we saw in the credits,
at the end, didn't he?
Mike Flanagan.
He's done a fantastic job there.
Such a fantastic job. But you know what? He focuses on, and it was the same in Haunting a Hill House, it's a character first, horror second.
Yes.
And that sells the horror. And this movie is long because you spend, as you said, you spend a lot of time with Danny at the beginning in his later life, going through hell, and you feel for him, and you're with him on that road.
His character arc is actually quite complete. In a really, you see him the highest and his lowest, and you see him struggling, and you see all of that, and I think that was really, really exciting. And what's good is that at the heart of it, there's a really simple story here, is that these people with these abilities, the Shining, are preyed upon by these malevolent people, demons, creatures, undead, unsure what they are.
They're never named.
They're never named.
I quite appreciate it.
I like it because it gave them a license to do what they wanted with them and surprise you as well, which was good. But it's such the idea of it was a pure battle of good versus evil, and suddenly,
and it's a cat and mouse game as well.
And But what's interesting, like The Shining, is a horror film in the truest horror house film in the truest thing. One location, escape this location, and this film was a road movie, and it was travelling all across the country, and so it had a really different feel, and that's why I thought initially really struggled with a bit, because it's like doesn't feel like The Shining at all. They play the music. They do occasionally some graphic things that suggest they've seen The Shining. There's some flashbacks, but you're not seeing The Shining here. It's a completely different movie. And once you settle on that, it's great. I really enjoyed the movie. I have to say, I really enjoyed it.
All right. I don't know how much more we can say without getting into detail. So I think we turn onto Spoiler Street right now. But firstly, I highly recommend people see this. I think it's kind of bombing at the box office, right? I don't think it's done well.
I haven't heard, actually, but I mean, I can see why. It's not what people will expect if you're a really hardcore Shining fan. And it doesn't, Ewan McGregor isn't the shining light he once was, the crowd puller he once was.
Shining light?
I didn't even... Yeah. But it doesn't have those ingredients. I mean, what's really interesting, this film was sort of, as soon as the book was written, someone started making it, but it was stalled, and until it came along and Stephen King's name and profile rose again, they suddenly fast-tracked it and gave it to...
Yeah, man, he's everywhere this year. You and me went to Pet Sematary on this very podcast months ago.
They're going through all of it. The back catalogue is fair game now.
Yeah, we had... all right, well, what else do we have? Yeah, this one, we had It. Also, we did on this podcast, or I did it with Lee. There was in the Tall Grass on Netflix.
I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen that one either. There's TV shows. There's Castle Rock.
Yeah, that was disappointing, I found, actually.
I haven't watched it.
I made a real effort to find that.
Because that's Kathy Bates' character, a prequel, right? Is that right?
It's not. It's like imagine a world of all his things.
A world.
It's like the Stephen King world.
Oh, it's like
a town
a universe
of Stephen King. And all the characters and all the hints to all the stories are all in there, and the mysteries within it. And someone appears in Shawshank prison, and no one knows why he's there or who locked him up. That's how that starts. It was an interesting show, but I didn't love it. Oh. I was like, it's not horror really. It's sort of just.
That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's certainly. If you're a diehard fan, the details are there in that show. But yeah, I wasn't enamoured.
And then there's also The Outsiders on HBO coming with a big cast. So yeah, this is the year of Stephen King, right? Yeah. Sorry, I better stop. I'm shouting now. Yeah, we're going to go into our house. This is the Cinemile at Home edition.
It's the walking bit we just negated.
Right. I've got to open the door, don't I? Actually, before we go in, and before we go to Spoiler Street, I've got to do a quick shout out to some of the lovely people who are donating to our podcast on a regular basis on our Patreon, and I still can't believe that we are so lucky to have listeners that want to pay us to do this and want more of this. So we really just... I know Kathy's not here right now, but we honestly, genuinely appreciate all of this. So thank you, John Dennehy, Philip Bridgehouse, Danny JP, Kate, Martin Gannon, and many more of you who we will name on future episodes. But we massively appreciate it. If you want to do the same, if you like what we do here, head to patreon.com/The Cinemile. We also have a bonus podcast feed where we do loads of old movies and TV shows like we were just talking about, so give that a look. Right, let's enter into the spoiler house. Spoiler house. I don't know if I want to go into spoiler scary, house. Man. It does. We got properly spooked coming out of
we got jumped by a gang just to shout at us from it.
Which seems to happen every time you and me are together. That happened on our Pet Sematary podcast as well. All right, here we go. All right, we better keep it down a little bit because Kathy and Oscar are asleep. We'll retire to the spoiler living room. Okay. Do you want a drink or anything? Yeah, all right. Well, let's get... I'm sure the listeners don't want to hear me making a drink. All right, here we are. We're back. Okay. Spoilers now. We are now past the spoiler threshold. So spoilers for Dr. Sleep, which, as it turns out, is his name because he sits with people before they die.
Yeah, he gets a job, doesn't he, in a hospice, and he has this gift for... And the cat has a weird gift. They have this excellent cat in the movie.
Yeah.
Seems to walk up to the person who's just about to die. And
does the cat have the shining?
I think it does.
Yeah.
Cat shining. And so he basically goes up to these characters and he eases them through their last moments of life. And because he knows there is life after death, because he's haunted by all these characters, he can bring them real peace. And that is quite a redemptive thing for him. I think he finds himself in that situation quite well. And that's what's so good about it, actually. So you start off and you think, it's going to be a cliche, okay, a guy who struggles now, alcoholic, but you feel the whole redemptive arc of this character. And this fight is always there. The alcohol is always present in that film.
Yeah, that's a real thread, isn't it? But you feel that's a horror moment when the whiskey's in front of him, or when he goes home with the bottle that he picks up.
Oh, and he's literally holding it to his mouth, and you think, his strength is he has to be strong for this little girl he's met. And if he goes there, he's done for. He's gone. He's lost.
But that's what I mean about character. I was in those moments. I was scared. I was as scared as I was in any horror film, and I felt his struggle because I really cared for Danny, and I cared for that little girl. Except her stupid name is Abra, and then they kept saying abracadabra and the magic.
That was weird.
Why you call her Abra, Stephen King? Come on, man.
I have no idea.
That's just stupid.
But she's got powers, man.
She was awesome. Like, she's kind of the star of this movie in many ways. Well, we'll get to Rebecca Ferguson in a minute.
Yeah, because Rosie the Hat is a great
so
character.
Good. But that little girl Abra is just so cool. There's never a moment because it's interesting. She's the prey, as you said,
but the hunter.
She's stronger.
She realises. I think that's what's so cool about it. So you get these characters, and they're feeding on people and turning people into themselves, and they're like a band of sort of drifters who are going around America finding these people who have got steam, which is basically the essence of a soul as they're in pain, and they feed on it.
And then they give each other blowbacks.
Yeah, they do. It's quite druggy, actually. It is. There's a real druggy sort of.
It was, because they were all like, and they're kissing.
There's addiction is a big theme in this thing, I guess. But she somehow sees one of their murders. She just tunes in, and they talk about their brains being like radios, and that she tunes in, and they get a sniff of her, and it's like catnip. She's like she's the mother lode of steam. This girl's
the
powers.
whale.
They call her the whale.
Yeah.
She's bigger than a whale. She's the one we've been looking for. Yeah, I mean, but it's cool. It's like she's suddenly all eyes turn on her, and firstly, it's great because the arrogance of these people who seem to be living huge, like, centuries. So vampire really throws in there where you go, okay, these guys almost live forever,
but in caravans. But very opulent caravans.
Yes, that's what I did.
With jacuzzis.
If you live there, surely you can scam the system and learn how to become very...
Live in hotels.
Yeah, get a private
like, stay
jet.
in hotels.
Yeah.
Like, they're clearly
people.
independently wealthy.
Yes, exactly. But they travel around...
and they want to be free. They're free spirits.
Maybe that's it. And there's sort of like this like Indian sort of natural American Earth Mother type vibes to some of them.
Have you played Red Dead Redemption 2?
I haven't. I played one. I completed one, but I never played.
They remind me, for any listeners who have played that, and the rest of you are really tuning out right now, but they basically reminded me of that gang, Dutch's gang, which is the same characters in the first one, actually. Right. But she even has the similar hat to Dutch.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
enough of that.
They're quite. What's weird is, like, it starts off mildly scary. You see them take these people, but it's actually quite. The horror's pulled right back, and so you just get this idea that they're hunting these people, and then she thinks arrogantly she'll just go into this girl's world and fuck around in her head. Sorry for the swear word, I shouldn't have said that.
That's right.
And she gets a kicking by this little girl.
That's such a good scene.
So confident that she's foolish, and they go head to head. These two giant minds of shining power, or whatever it is, and there are some amazing scenes, and they hold them back, which is so good because they really have an impact when they do. When they start, they go into each other's minds and they represent them. And then there's like these trippy scenes where she's floating over the sky searching for her. It's just some cool little moments where you're just like, God, that's stylish. And
he holds it off because sometimes it's borderline that could be silly.
Yeah.
But it's totally believable.
Yeah.
No, I love the idea of the mind as she sees the little girl's mind as these like 80s Filofax drawers.
She has mind's a cathedral.
Yeah.
And she just has the arrogance to think.
How good. I was just fucking rooting for the little girl when she flips the tables and she's rooting through the cathedral. And I was like, but I'm invested in both these sets of characters. And the other thing that he did so well was establish them as villains, but real threats. So you spend a lot of time with the villains, with the group of band, but then the moment you said you sort of, a lot of it is the threat is off screen, them hunting their prey, but then that moment where you see the process of how they suck the soul out of that boy was honestly really harrowing to watch.
I get it. It's one of those things where it's like, it's just different these days. 15, it's brutally torture to children.
A child is screaming as they stick a knife into him, and he's
like,
screaming, "I want, please let me go, don't hurt me."
I don't get it anymore. Like, I used to watch stuff like that, like thinking it was the echelon of terror, and it's like, this is just like young 15. It's amazing. The whole parameters of what people watch now is just so different.
I really found it a hard scene to watch.
It's hard. Maybe when you're when you don't have kids, it's a different thing. But I found some of that tough, and because they say that the untarnished youth, the soul is purer and not corrupted, so they prey on the young. They like the young. These things. But I found some of that really harrowing, and actually, while the gore was quite spared, when it came in, it was brutal. Like the hand. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they skin a hand. Oh, you felt every bit.
I cheered because of that scene with the boy. That's when you were like, I hate these people now. But like, so when they executed their trap in the forest and they got absolutely annihilated, I was cheering. Yeah. Even though it was like their plan was essentially a little bit silly. Oh, we'll just hide next to a tree and we've got 2 guns and they've got. Like, I don't know how they pulled that bit off.
The only thing that frustrated me about that was throughout the film, Danny's character has a friend who pretty much saves him from himself. He's an alcoholic. This guy takes him on his wing. We jump 8 years in time and he's a put together man. Beard comes off. Symbolism of put togetherness. I always love that. It's like, he's now a real man.
Is that all that we're lacking?
That's what we're lacking.
Should we just need to have a shave?
If we shave, we're real men. But until then, we're not put together people. So he gets a good shave. He gets a great friend. And as soon as you walk into that wood, it's like, who's the expendable guy? Not the guy I really liked. I thought he was brilliant.
I liked him as well. I liked everyone in this movie. And that really hurt. It really hurt when she said, kill yourself.
Yeah, but that's what was so good as well, because you saw how they recruited their people and you knew how powerful she was as well. Yeah. But she just needed to say a few things to you and you'd start doing. But actually, she's the only one we really got besides Rose's Crow. Everyone else was just kind of there. Yeah. In a way. I mean, we got a few of their names, but we they
really got
seemed to stand back, didn't they? The rest, and they had a really strange old guy who just
Grandpa Flick or something.
He seemed to be the old leader of the group, but Rose seemed to be the most powerful one. But the way he suddenly finally comes to his end, and you go, oh my, that was like, oof. They've got a jeopardy in them, so they have to feed, or they're going to get that.
Yeah.
So I think that was all good horror films, or you need a good baddie as much as a good goodie. Superhero movies are the same thing, but this was like they gave you time, so you cared about the stakes in this film.
Yes, stakes, exactly. And they have motivations, those villains. Yeah. Like, they weren't just two-dimensional horror villains or ghosts or whatever.
They have to feed. They have to find these things. And the world... there's a really one bad line I didn't like in the movie where it's like, the world's just full of phones and Netflix. People don't care anymore. So Steam is... I still think terror is just as valid nowadays. But maybe they're talking about desensitized people or something. But that was like, there's just not as much Steam in the world.
Yeah, wait, so the implication is that if we didn't subscribe to Netflix, we would be psychic?
Yeah. Well, I just think we'd be more delicious to these vampires, actually.
Right. So Netflix is saving us from soul vampires.
Saving us. Yeah, we're now like invisible to these people.
They should advertise on that.
They should. Note that the last 2 films that Flanagan did, A Haunting of Hill House and Gerald's Game, which was the Stephen King thing he did before, both Netflix exclusives. Netflix exclusives.
Oh yeah.
So there was a lot of love there. But no, it was a weird film. For all the things I loved about it, the Shining stuff was the least. While I didn't hate any of it because it was very faithfully redone, It didn't have any of the feel and the mood of the original film. It was beautifully recreated, but it didn't feel necessary to the story what was going on. And obviously it was really interesting. I read an article just before I came about their decision not to CGI young versions of Jack. Well, they are, because they'd asked Jack earlier in the making, would he be in it for one? And obviously it was like, no way. I'm so retired right now. No thanks. But you see so many films where they just, de-age somebody, or, and you've got an actress playing, the mother is such like, was it Shelley Duvall?
Yes.
I mean, she's so iconic.
She looked like her a bit.
They tried, but it takes you a couple of minutes when you're watching the film to go, well, that's not the actor who played Daniel, that's not that.
Yeah.
And it took you a little while, but then
especially when they drop in an actual clip from the movie at one point.
Yeah, there was 2 or 3 shots where it's just like, I'm just going to take that shot because I can't beat it.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it was interesting, wasn't it? How you're so used to like them just recreating people now. I actually thought, why aren't they just doing this?
Yeah,
the way
I had the same thought.
Where's my young Kurt Russell
in the week where it's announced that James Dean has been cast in a movie? I'm like, well, the
director said, look, I don't think it's good enough, and the close-ups I needed and the things that he said, I'm just gonna respect the thing. I thought it worked mostly, but as soon as you went to the character who they were saying, he didn't call himself Jack, but you could tell he was being Jack. As soon as you saw him, I thought, well, it's not Jack. He didn't get close.
They got a pretty decent lookalike, though.
They got a good lookalike, and occasionally his voice sounded a bit. Yeah. They could have done something with the voice, maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but all of that was nice, but at the same time it sometimes took me out of it a little bit when I was like trying to process how I felt about stuff. But fundamentally that's a good movie. That's a really good movie. Yeah, it's a good movie with a little bit of a shining it's a little bit of a shining on top. A lot of it is loaded towards the end, most of it. Yeah. I love a funny plot movement. Hey, how are we going to kill this evil demon vampire witch? Let's go somewhere fully haunted. Yeah,
I know a place. But also, his plan, as he says to her, is it's a really bad place for us, like really bad. Yeah. But it might be even worse for her. Your plan is it might be. Let's go to the worst place in the world for us.
I guess when you see it play out, you know what he was thinking in the sense that he knows what he's locked up.
Yeah.
And what he can unleash.
And that was great.
I know. And
that was
again,
really well done.
Genuinely grotesque moment.
Yeah, the hands going up under her skin, man.
Proper like skin distortion. Yeah. Lovely stuff. I loved it all. But it's like I'm not a big gorehound, but when I feel it's justified, when it gives you that real shudder, it's great.
But and you also get that thrill of like, she's getting her comeuppance. She's so good in
agony.
This. Rebecca
she
Ferguson.
Looked in agony.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She needs to be in all movies, as far as I can tell. Like
she's
amazing. Like, every time I see her, you think the Mission Impossible film, she raised the bar. Then she did like The Great Showman, she was fantastic in that. Then you see something like this, and you think like she's Kate Blanching all this way. Like Kate Blanchett is my all-time favourite actress. Like beautiful, amazing, supremely talented. Just every time I watch her, I find her just mesmeric, and I'm starting to think the same. I think she's excellent.
She's charismatic. I just was like, you're kind of just seduced by her, aren't you?
Yeah, and calm. She's beautiful, calm, polite. She doesn't wear scary clothes, and yet she was genuinely terrifying in parts of that film. Yeah. There were sometimes she walks into the Overlook Hotel looking quite fashionable, and I was like, okay, yeah. She's like, lovely overcoat you've got on.
And I love how she just like stares at the lifts and the lift of blood, and she's just like, oh,
it's lovely this place, isn't it?
But her fashion was awesome. Yeah. She got like at one point she's just wearing like just a blue jumper and leggings while she's fucking going on a psychic trip over the world, and a hat. I'm like, this is like I'd love to know how much of that is the wardrobe department and how much of it is Rebecca Ferguson, because it feels like she was just owning. She looked and walked through that movie with such confidence and grace.
And I think there's a strength there, isn't it? When you paint someone in a caricature of she's the evil one, so she wears weird gothic clothing or something, it's sort of caricatures. Yeah. But she looked like she's walking around shops normally. People are talk. There's a moment where people just talk to her, and she's like, this is a demon from hell, and she just talks to them like normal. Hey. That stuff. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting how they just went.
You're right. That scene where the supermarket. She's like.
Can I help you? No,
she's
fine.
not there for a purpose for the plot. She's just doing the shopping.
She's doing the shopping. I mean, that scene's great. But she's so thrilled and giddy when she gets thrown to the floor by this girl's mind. And she goes, oh my God, to have that power.
So steamy.
Yeah, so it's the language is hard sometimes, isn't it? You know.
But I like that. That's what I like about Stephen King. Like all this, that's what's good about him as a writer. Yeah. This nonsense all came out of his mind, and he just sort of just vomits it out onto the page, and it's often just like
I think that
brilliant.
There are so many of his books which transfer badly to film. I think because you can't get around that stuff. Like I thought It Chapter 1 was pretty phenomenal in terms of the way they paced it. 2, they had some big like logical hurdles, like the Chud thing and the ritual of Chud, and then it's like the thing Stephen King writes. I can't make this into a logical piece of cinema. There's some silly stuff in this a bit, but I actually felt the lid was on enough to go like, some silly words and some silly things, and the last lines in the film are a little bit.
Oh, that was rough.
But mirrors the.
You keep on shining.
It's mirrored in the original film, but it's just it doesn't have the gravitas at all from the first film. So there's some moments where you struggle a little, but at the same time, the characters he's created and the story, it's fantastic. I don't know, it's just one of those things I didn't expect a lot, and so I've been really pleased today.
Yeah, it was surprising. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. There was a couple of people walked out.
Yeah, but also they walked out like 2 hours in, right?
Yeah. It's like, what happened at that point? They go, oh shit, we just got to get in the car, or I've got to catch my last train. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know, but it was quite.
What
good,
about the ones behind us who were just whispering throughout the whole movie?
Well, I thought that it was good that the film shut them up enough.
Yes, it did.
At the beginning, I was like, "Oh God, I'm really going to have to do it. I might have to." You know, when you think you have to say something, but I hate saying something.
I didn't have the courage either.
That's my best thing about going to cinema with my wife. She will turn and say something. She'll just go, "No," and I'll be like, "I love her so much," because I hate confrontation like that. But
we'll have to bring your wife next time. To chaperone us.
Oh, I told her we were watching this. She just literally, I just saw her like curl up on the sofa and went, nah. Graham Norton for me tonight. All right. Look, let's say it's a decent film. I'd say it's the best Stephen King film this year. I would say definitely that. I'd say it's better than It Chapter 2, and I'd say it's better than Pet Sematary.
I'm on the same page as you.
Yeah. I think all the others fell over a little bit into silly territory, while this one just held on.
If you're going to watch just one of the 14 Stephen King movies this year,
so far that's maybe my favourite. But what's the one on Netflix?
In the Tall Grass,
which it out.
I do want to check out, because that's Vince Natali, or it's the guy that did Cube. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
And that other one with the genetics later on. I'm butchering this.
Okay.
It was really good.
Oh, nice.
Someone has IMDb and knows what I'm talking about. One thing that did bother me for most of the movie, and this is so trivial, but they set up that Ewan McGregor has this real stickler of a landlord who writes the rent on the wall in chalkboard, and it's like, don't you fucking forget this, man. And she's like, is you sure this guy's good? Close eyes on him. But then for the rest of the movie, he has the word murder literally not even smashed into his wall with like a load of nonsense around it, and no problem there.
He must be paying on time.
I guess.
As long as he's doing
She's
that.
Not going in.
I thought that was weird thing to sort of set up her character and then just drop her.
Yeah, see it.
But there was.
But he's not.
It didn't
getting
need to be longer
back.
A film though. To be fair, it didn't need to be longer.
No, I want that
Imagine if
scene.
you had like another 10 minutes of arguing with the landlord. Just really like ground this thing.
All right.
But yeah, man, there's lots to like about that film. I came out deeply. I'm surprised, pleased. I'm so chuffed for Mike Flanagan, because definitely in the horror community, people have seen him go all the way up, and he's just right there now.
Yeah, he deservedly.
Everything he does, and what's so interesting, like. You start off when you watch the Kubrick stuff, and it's the way it's shot, and the 0 point, the camera's always centered and just tracking along. And obviously, they used a steady cam in that film, and it didn't feel like that, but it did feel like one of his films. You know, it had the same camera panning shots they did in Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, that one episode?
Rotation, the rotations.
The whole thing?
Yeah. And that lovely shot when it pans across and you go, what's it turning to? And then you go, it's the lifts. And then you hit lifts. And the way when he walks around the Overlook Hotel and you're like, please don't go around that corner because I know what's around that corner in the other movie. And they do that really well. And I was just...
His love for The Shining came through,
didn't it? It did. And
it shone through. So many good
I know, we've done a lot of Shining jokes, haven't we? But yeah, it's great, man. I love it when a film surprises you.
Yeah, same. All right. Wholehearted recommendation at the end of this podcast where you've heard all the spoilers. Right, thanks, Al. Thanks for coming.
Oh, always a pleasure. You know that.
Al's also got a podcast, The 5 Podcast.
Yeah.
We're on it. Episode 2.
On it. Episode 2, yeah. I've got a few more in the pipeline coming soon. It's not quite as regular as your podcast, but please give it a listen if you like to think about the 5 favourite movie scenes of your life. Pretty tough ask, but it's quite a good discussion.
Yeah. Cool. And where can they find it?
They can find that on iTunes and mainly iTunes. I think it is on other things, but I don't know where.
It's on wherever the things are.
On my alexmathieson.com website. You can go there.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Al, thanks for coming.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Come and play with us forever and ever.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
I'm Jessie Cruikshank, and I've always been told I have a face for podcasting. So I launched a podcast. It's called Phone a Friend because each week I'll break down the biggest stories in pop culture. But when I have questions, I get to phone a friend. I'll phone a royal watcher to find out why Prince Harry is acting like a real housewife. I'll phone a tween to please explain Euphoria. And maybe I'll even phone a Backstreet Boy to find out if I still have a chance. I don't? Okay. New episodes drop every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.